Thank you, Jericho, for catching that. Okay. Oh, so the public is going to miss the whole introductory piece for them. Okay. So minutes from December, any comments or corrections? Do I have a motion to approve?
I'd be happy to approve the minutes of the December meeting.
Okay, moved by Daryl. Do I have a second?
I second.
Second from Cindy by roll call vote. Daryl,
Yes,
Athlon,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Claudia? You need to unmute. There we go.
Yes.
Okay, Jocelyn
Yes.
and Vanessa.
Yes.
Okay, great. So moving to item 5 on the agenda, I guess I have this as the update from the Director of Human Services. Jericho, do you want to give us a summary, or do you want me to do it, or however you want to do it?
I think you can go ahead and I'll chime in if necessary.
Okay, great. So based on our recommendation to town administration to form a task force, some things have happened just in the last 10 days or so that I wanted to fill you in on. Initially, we had hoped that 2 members of this group would be on the task force, and things got a little kind of rapid and squirrely, and it ended up going through the Healthy Community Collaborative, which had a scheduled meeting last Tuesday, a week ago Tuesday. And a small group of human services providers took up the reins and tried to act as quickly as possible in the last 10 days or so. And the outcome is as follows. With assistance from the town, we're producing a very graphic, few words, lots of graphics flyer that will be distributed to the community. And the idea is, as was recommended by this group, that the Family Resource Center will act as the primary contact for people seeking resources, people affected by COVID seeking resources. And so this flyer will direct the community to the Family Resource Center, where they will undergo an intake process and then be referred to the various agencies depending on the needs that are identified by that intake process. And that includes food, utility support, rental assistance, mental health services, and anything else that's available both locally and statewide. This is the Family Resource Center has been providing this kind of case management service. That's what they do. And so we're delighted that they're stepping up and ready to expand their capacity to respond to this. So initially, the flyers will be distributed at both testing sites, from the contact tracers via digital format, and at pharmacies. And so we'll start with that distribution network, see how much volume, and see whether the Family Resource Center needs more people before we broadcast the availability of this service more broadly. Hopefully within a matter of a week or so, we'll be able to do a quick assessment, ramp up their people if with volunteers and others as needed, and be prepared for more phone calls, texts, and emails. They'll be able to be contacted all 3 ways. And then phase 2 phases, there'll be then more rollout phases that will include schools, markets, doctor's offices, coffee shops, the meals programs, churches, businesses through the chamber, the lodging association, the restaurant association. And basically the idea is for people to know that there's help that they can ask for out in the community and all of these different resources. And so I want to apologize to Claudia and Cindy for not bringing them into this, what turned out to be sort of a really rapid response. And hopefully you can understand that it just kind of took on a path, and I'm delighted that where we ended up. And hopefully this may well serve as a model for resource coordination through and beyond COVID. And so the Family Resource Center is really excited to provide this service. The one piece that we were concerned about was interpretation and translation services. And it felt like too big a job to try to coordinate a lot of people and their availability based on agency timing. I mean, you know, the food pantry is doing intakes until 9 o'clock at night. There's, you know, and so what we're going to do as an immediate response to facilitate interpretation services is we've asked the Immigration Resource Center, which is housed under the Unitarian Church, we've just sent a funding request tonight to the Community Foundation to pay for a contract with a company called Linguistica, which is a service that the public schools use for 24/7 access to interpretation services. And so it would be an account that will be shared by all these human services agencies as they respond to this greater, hopefully, inquiries from the community for assistance. And so we're going to start there. And it's my hope that utilizing that service will help prove the need for increased investment in translation and interpreter services across the community, and maybe will help inform us as a group as to how to recommend that the town fund and organize such services. So I'm hopeful for that. So that's it. Anything else, Jericho? Did I cover it pretty well?
No, I think you nailed just about everything. Thank you.
Okay, terrific. Any questions from anybody on process, on what's happening, or, yep, Cindy?
The Nantucket Family Resource Center, do they plan to put anything on their website that would direct people to this element you just mentioned? I just looked at the website. I didn't see anything related to COVID.
Yep, I will make a point of that to make sure they update their website. Great idea. And just in terms of the, they're also looking to have multilingual capacity on their incoming voicemail, their outgoing voicemail message as well, so that their outgoing voicemail message will be in English, Spanish, and Portuguese, so that when people get their voicemail in off hours, they will know that they will hear back from someone in their language, and that the response time is expected to be 48 hours. So that people will also know what to expect in terms of timing. So, yeah, Aslan?
I just wanted to clarify, Linguistica will also be available to other nonprofits, not just Family Resource Center, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Yep. So some of our local service agencies have multilingual staff. And for instance, Nantucket Food, Fuel, and Rental Assistance, they have folks who are doing interpretation services for them, but they're overwhelmed already. So this is intended to supplement, not replace, existing multilingual staff members at the various organizations. And so, I mean, I think it's important, ideally, having local people, doing this work and being compensated for this work is the long-term goal. And this is hopefully in the future a supplement to that, and hopefully we can grow our available translators and interpreters for these agencies as well, and that folks might be willing to be on call or however that, but that's a much bigger project to organize on short notice. So, any other questions? All right, well, kudos to all of you for getting this ball rolling. So, thank you.
Brooke,
okay.
yes,
Yes,
I have a
Vanessa.
question. I'm
Sure.
sorry if I've missed that. When is the Nantucket Family Resource Center is gonna start getting those phone calls and get the word out? When this project is going to exactly take place?
So informally, they're already doing this work. So if you know of
Oh.
someone, you're welcome to direct them to the Family Resource Center now. But the cards are going to be printed this week. So this will roll out formally probably the beginning of next week, right, Jericho? Yeah. So it'll be sort of hopefully we're going to get the hospital to start distributing next week. And so it'll become more known as this program. But they're ready, willing, and able now to take phone calls.
Okay, it would be great if they get their Facebook updated as well, along with their website.
Okay, great. I will. We're trying to balance. We want people to get access to services, and we don't want them overwhelmed too quickly too. So we're trying to sort of take this stepwise. And make sure that it's done well from the get-go, and people don't end up frustrated. And in the meantime, this is not a requirement. It's not that one must go through the Family Resource Center to get to the food pantry. It's really about helping people who may be under duress or having a hard time just figuring it all out for themselves, to have one person they can call who's a warm voice and knows where everything is and can help them figure out what they need and help them get the need that, the stuff that they need. So, Aslan.
Sorry, I just wanted to add one thing. I can't remember who, I believe it was Cindy who said to get, is it Linguistica? Is that the name of it? Put on their website. Having used a program similar to that, it would be helpful if they also put a little blurb on how it works in a couple of our primary languages, so that people know what the process is going to be to use it. In other words, somebody will be calling you back from Linguistica, but they will be on the phone with a Family Resource Center advocate, something that gives them an idea of how it works. So they're just not in the dark before they get contacted.
Okay, great. Jericho, that might be something we put on the back of the card. Yeah, great idea, Aslan. Again, I'm big about managing expectations and helping people know what to expect so that they don't get confused and frustrated to minimum, because they're already often under duress in this circumstance, when they find they need to make that phone call or send that text message. So, all right, great. Anything else on this? Okay, so January 25th, Community Forum. So we do have our panelists who have responded and agreed to participate. And I'm very excited about that. And this really does dovetail with exactly what we just finished talking about. It's getting people access to resources and the help they need through COVID. And in this case, we're going to be focused on parenting resources on the 25th. So the items that I have on our agenda for tonight for planning for this is, first of all, translation and interpretation services. And we had started to have this conversation when we ran out of time last meeting. And I've since discovered a plugin that one can use on Zoom that will do closed captioning, live closed captioning for Zoom meetings. And so I thought I'd like to sort of debate the merits of having live folks, local folks live on the webinar to translate questions and answers from the panelists versus trying this sort of more techie solution to multilingual access to the information that we're going to be sharing through the webinar. Any thoughts from anybody on that? I don't have a lot of details. Go ahead, Vanessa.
Yeah, I like to share that experience that I had. I think it was sometime in November, I took part in an event, and there were more than 200 people in that Zoom meeting. And then, people from any country that you can imagine, and many Hispanics, Brazilians, and then the organizers, they provided the interpreters. It was kind of funny because I had never, seen something like that through Zoom. So the way that they did, what I don't know, what there is some function or feature in this on Zoom that allowed the interpreters to work. So what happened is that I don't know if it's separate room, I don't know, but the panelists were like talking and explain things, and the people were like listen to them. But for the ones who need interpreters, there is a different function on Zoom that the interpreters were interpreted from them, there, like live. The interpreters were there. And then when they had questions to the panelists, to the Americans, everybody wasn't silent. And then they were like, but we could listen to them. And the interpreters were interpreting to the panelists all those folks' questions. And they said, oh, okay, oh, good question, oh, thank you for the idea, I like that. And then they start all over again. It was, I don't know, there is a huge feature on Zoom. I don't know if some of you guys have heard, if through the through the chair. I don't know if anyone has heard something like that, but that's what happened. I'd like to share that with you. I'm not familiar with that.
Can you share with me what the event was?
It was about driver's license for undocumented people. Okay. The event was promoted by the Brazilian Worker Center, Boston Brazilian Work Center, by Natalicia Tracy. So there were more than 200 people in that meeting.
Could you send me her contact information? Because I'll reach out to her.
Of course, I can. Yeah, sure.
Brooke, I just want to mention that is the translation function. I sent you that in that email a while back.
Okay.
And it's only a Zoom webinar. It doesn't work in all Zoom functions, but if you do it under webinar. So that was the stuff that I was looking into, and there's some YouTube videos about it, but it's only under that one function, and it already exists. You just need to get the interpreters who are willing to and can train in doing it. But yes, seen that it works well if you have the individuals, like what Vanessa is saying, that are willing to step in and do that service for you. But yeah, there's an option there for sure.
Oh, because I missed the live interpreter one. I saw the typing one. Okay, so I didn't read the whole thing. Okay, all right. So so thoughts on closed captioning, which is simultaneous, right? So it's more time efficient, right? In my estimation, than live interpreter services, where the panelists are waiting for a translation, and the listeners are waiting for a live translation. What do you guys think about these alternatives?
Well, closed captioning won't allow someone to ask a question.
Okay.
They will only allow them to read the answers people are providing, but they won't be able to ask anything.
Good.
Is there a possibility for both?
Good question.
Like the closed caption for the one-way communication, but then when we cut to question answer and open that up, that we have an interpreter to ask the question and give the feedback.
Okay. All right. Let's find that out. Jericho and Rachel, is there any funding for any of this potentially? So we,
I'm not sure what the cost might be, but there's certainly a way to look at the budget and see what
okay, all right.
we have in
So
line. We sort of need to know cost, I think, before Jericho can really look at the budget and figure out if it exists within the human service or alternate.
I guess I was trying to figure out if it was a hard no or a maybe. Okay, maybe's good. Okay, Cindy?
I just want to suggest that maybe we can reach out to the community school, because in the community interpreting class that I took was organized by the community school, and they have the contact of this school in Boston who brought the professors that taught the class. So I'm thinking with everything that happened, those schools, the interpreters that do that for a living must know more resources than we do. And
Okay.
it was a very nice lady. I think I might even have her email, but I'm happy to reach out if you want me to, or I don't know.
I was going to ask if you're willing to do that, Cindy. That would be great if you would do that legwork. That would be
Okay.
great. Okay, terrific. All right. I think we can get this nailed down in the next week or so. Any other thoughts or suggestions? At the very least, we should offer something if we can, for sure. I mean, I think that's what we've decided. Athlon?
Is it important for us to talk about what languages we think are pertinent to have translation for, from our community perspective?
Sure.
So I think Spanish and Portuguese right off the bat, but are there any other languages?
Anybody have any other thoughts?
I think Chinese, there are a few people here from China.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know if we're going to be able to find interpreters. Claudia?
Also Bulgarian, I think.
Okay. I can find out if the Bulgarian Education Center might have someone available just to be on the panel. Okay, Kelly?
Yeah, going off Claudia's suggestion, there's probably some other Eastern European languages that might be helpful, but based on the repercussions of COVID, I don't know how big that population is at the moment. I think typically it'd be a little bigger, but a lot of people were able to get here this year. Which the pantry, the clients at the pantry, I know there's still some Eastern European people.
Okay. As a practical matter, my thought is, I don't know how, but we'll see in terms of the community interpretation. Was that Spanish? Was it language specific, or Cindy, that training?
It was Spanish and Portuguese.
Okay. So at the very least, Spanish and Portuguese, and then we can see whether we can make people available with some other languages as well. Okay. All right, great. Anything else on the topic of translation interpretation? Okay, panelist questions. Athlon, I was going to go over these with you this morning when we spoke, and then I neglected to do it. Hold on one second. So Athlon worked up, and I worked up a short list of questions for our panelists. We talked about having them do a quick introduction that would be consistent for each human service agency. And what we came up with was, one, please give us a brief description of what your agency provides to the Nantucket community, specifically related to our topic of parenting through COVID. I'm sorry. Please give us a brief description of what your agency provides the Nantucket community. Give us some insight on the top 2 or 3 services you provide that may be helpful to parents during COVID. Please tell us how you can serve people in the community who do not have English as a first language. And then another one she came up with is, as an agency, where do you see the needs of the community that are not met and we should consider as a council? So perhaps not all of these would be in their introduction, but by email, and then maybe the first 2 would be their introduction to the webinar. What are your thoughts on that, guys?
I personally think all those questions were very valuable. I don't know how I'd pick 1 or 2, but.
Okay.
I don't know, but I thought those were very good questions.
Okay. Great. When we're thinking about the interest of time, in terms of keeping the introductions brief, that could be a lot answering all of those questions.
Yeah.
So anybody else have any thoughts on it, or is that what y'all had in mind for what would be their introduction? I see Cindy shaking her head, yes. Claudia, Jocelyn. So, Ashlyn.
In regards to maybe keeping them succinct about how they describe their agency, should we ask them to keep it to 3 sentences about what they do as a global agency, then really spend their time on question 2 and 3?
Yep.
I just feel like we can give them some guidance around that, saying, a lot of people are going to know some of the agencies. It's just making sure that when they introduce themselves, that there's if Fairwinds is doing it, that they're saying we do mental health and this, or if it's the food pantry, we do. So it's just making sure that, the people who are attending understand who's talking and a little bit about what they're doing, not a big picture. That way it's short and we spend the time on the actual 2 major questions.
Okay. Good. Does that make sense to everybody? Agree with what? If you have any comments, don't hesitate to raise your hand. Okay, and then the 3rd section of this is community outreach and publicity. And I think now that we've sort of nailed down our format and that translation and interpretation services will be available, we'll get a Facebook post out for the town, and then share as broadly as possible across the human service agencies, the schools, and get the word out on social media. And I hope all of you will help us do that through whatever networks you have, and personally inviting people that you know as well, as much as possible, because I think personal invitations go a long way on getting people to come to things like this. And any other thoughts in terms of public outreach? Yep, Cindy.
Are we going to have, all of us going to receive an email with the login, I don't know, meeting ID and password so that we can send them to people directly?
So there will be, we'll set up the webinar, and then we will send that link out. So what happens with the webinar is, as panelists are invited with a user-specific invitation link that makes so their faces are seen to the public, and then attendees are only by voice. They're not, they don't have video access. So that link to attend as an attendee is universal and can be shared broadly. But if one is a panelist, you can't share your link with anyone because it's tied to your email address, and only you can use that link if you're a panelist. I have that right, Rachel? And Jericho? Yeah, Jericho's shaking his head, yes.
Yes, sorry.
So, yeah,
Unmute
that's
issue.
okay. Yeah, I know. Your fingers poking it and nothing happens. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, hopefully people will join us. And the topic is certainly going to be on people's minds in the next few weeks.
So can I ask again, what is exactly the title of the seminar? What did we?
Parenting through COVID. Is that, I believe that's the phrase I've been using, is that. Yep.
I have one other thought.
Yep.
Maybe to the library as well, the Athenaeum, because they have the language classes. And that would be a good outlet, I think.
Yeah, I have a whole distribution list that we're going to be using for the COVID resources, and it's basically the same. I mean, that distribution list will be where we're going to send this.
Good.
The chamber, the lodging association, the restaurant association, everybody. So, Athlon.
One more thought, since we're asking for feedback about areas that we may be missing, we probably want to give some information on how we're going to use that information and put something back out about how we're addressing some of those items or not able to. Because it's very frustrating to give your input and never hear that a committee is at least talking about it or getting some feedback. So food for thought, I think we should figure out how we would do that. I don't know if there are postings that we, can do. I have no idea how that works, but just food for thought for us.
Good idea. And I think probably what we would do is use that have that as an agenda item for our follow-up meeting after this, to see what feedback we got. And I think that will also help guide our work in the coming months.
Yeah. So I think in the panel discussion, and when we have people, we should say, we are going to take the feedback and we're going to be talking about it in our future meetings.
Good idea. Okay. Okay. Great. Is there anything else on the forum that did we decide whether we're going to be panelists? Our whole group are going to be panelists as well. I don't think we really talked about that. Is that no, Cindy, as we're not, or we had?
I don't think we talked about it.
Okay.
Or at least I don't recall.
Okay. So let's weigh the positives and negatives of our group being panelists as well. In other words, people being able to see our faces. And I would say the balancing act is how many faces do you have on screen? Does it get overpopulated as a panel against people knowing who you all are and knowing that that you're participating in this work and that you are someone they can reach out to in the community. So let's chat back and forth about that for a second. Any thoughts?
Well, couldn't names just be listed?
You would be buried in with all the other attendees. If you mean on say the outreach stuff?
No, I'm talking about on the actual day of the forum, rather than having us be on the forum, just have the initial, opening of the Zoom, say participants are members of the committee, and then list the names and then have it open.
Okay. So just a voice introduction.
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else? Rachel, you're unmuted.
Yes, there is a feature that I've learned of that if you wanted to do, all of you could be on in the very beginning, and then you could introduce yourself. And then if you turn your camera off, it removes you from the active screen, but keeps you on as a panelist. And then when you put your camera back on, it pops you back on the screen so that it's not so busy. And you just have to set that up in the original settings when you set up the Zoom link. So it's not hard to find, but it is there, and I can maybe show you, but that's something that I saw that I found helpful, and a few other things that we were doing, so that when somebody's camera goes off, they just sort of go away in the background.
Great. So that sounds like a great alternative. So we'll invite you guys as panelists during the beginning. Does anyone want to host this meeting? Be the MC? We hadn't really talked about that either. Anyone up for the job?
Brooke, I think you should host that event.
This is what always happens.
I think so. It's a way to introduce yourself to the immigrant community. You know what I mean? To be great.
All right. Well, you know me, I'm a natural talker. I don't mind. I just wanted anyone else who wanted. Does anyone want to co-host with me? Cindy,
The
I'm looking
screen
at
isn't
you.
big enough.
Sure, I could co-host, but my thought on having us on the screen is that I think it's important to put a face to the name, and also just by our presence alone, meaning being from different countries and being from different backgrounds, I think it provides comfort, and it makes people feel better and maybe less intimidated if they know any of us. That is just my thought. I think it would be helpful.
That's great. Hey, Cindy, I just had a thought. If I'm going to do like a little introduction piece, would you be willing to read it, to say it in Spanish? So that the welcome.
Sure.
And then Vanessa in the Portuguese, and I'll just
sure
talk a little bit about what the Council for Human Services is, just a couple sentences about what CHS is, and then and why we're here tonight, and do that in all three languages, just right from us, from our group. I think that would be really cool.
Sure, Brooke. If you have something in mind, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say it has to be brief, because otherwise we're going to lose them.
Yep. No, I agree. But just, I think it would feel welcoming.
Yeah.
If you have anything in mind, Brooke, I would suggest you to share with Cindy and me.
Yep. Why don't the three of us
beforehand?
Why don't the three of us plan a meeting over the weekend, but sometime between now and then, to get our ducks in a row on all of that. That'd be great. Okay, terrific. It feels like it's coming together, guys. Yes, Cindy.
One other question. Is there, so if this is a webinar, then all of us, including town staff, will be also present, or is there only going to be us and panelists?
That's a good question. Let me ask you why you asked the question.
Just because for a couple things. One is, what if there is a technical difficulty?
Right.
Just thinking of somebody hacks the meeting. That's happening all over the country and happening all the time. I personally don't know what to do if that happens.
Okay. I'm assuming someone from town is going to have to host this anyway because it's on the town infrastructure. So I will work out who that will be and make sure we have that technical support. Good point.
Brooke,
Yes.
does the public need to, will the public need to register for the webinar? Okay.
Yes. Yep. Yep. That's how all the town meetings work now because of Zoom bombing that happened. That was rather disturbing. So, okay. Anything else that I haven't thought of, that we haven't thought of? Hopefully we have our bases covered. Great. Is there, there was something that I was going to talk about that I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting and now
You were going to talk about the fellow at the food pantry.
Oh, well, I would, oh, I know what it was. So I'm going to ask Rachel to explain the committee makeup. Are you okay doing that, Rachel? And what's going on with that?
What do you mean by the committee makeup?
The number of seats.
Oh, my camera finally worked. Don't mind me.
Yay. Sorry for the surprise.
Oh, okay. The number of seats for the Council of Human Services. Sure. So a few years back, when I was the Human Services Director, this committee was completely inactive. We had maybe one member on it, so we could never actually have a meeting, and that would be Daryl. And then we had another individual who joined, and being a 2-member board, we still didn't have a quorum. But we were able to see if we could find a way to get at least one more individual interested, because what we needed was 2 members appointed from this group to be a part of our contract review committee. And that was starting to impact the quorum there. And I do believe that part of the reason why this group maybe started being a little inactive is there was a community needs assessment done by the Council for Human Services way back when. And then that was sort of done by the hospital during their grant cycle. So that wasn't really needed to be done by this group anymore. And there was a behavioral health task force that started in the community. And since they took up so much of that work that I think this group might have started tackling, a lot of the time commitment that would have gone to it went to other areas. That's my theory anyways. But there wasn't a lot of focus and, drumming up individuals to be on the group, such as what Brooke took the reins and did. So what I ended up proposing was, since we knew we could at least get 3 members, is by the town's charter, which makes up our bylaws and our laws and how everything works, this had to be a 9-member board. And that meant our quorum was at a certain number. So when I dropped it by putting it to town meeting to 7 members, we were able to finally convene this group with only 3 members officially and award 2 of them to the contract review committee. Unfortunately, while that did pass at the town meeting, it did not change in both places in the bylaw. And what has to happen is it's such a technical thing that occurs that you can't just say, well, the intent was to drop it to 7 members, so we're changing this 9 to a 7 as well. You have to bring it back to the town meeting floor and change it again in the second spot. So it just happened that by the legal review and by our own review, we missed the other 9 listed in the sentence. However, well, I shouldn't say however yet. So that correction was going to the town meeting coming up, but that was sort of deferred because of COVID with 2020. But now that this group has generated such a great board and interest, and we did have applications for individuals who didn't make it on the board because there wasn't enough seats, we're now feeling that we don't need to drop it from 9 to 7. So since it's a technical thing anyways, instead of changing the other 9, why don't we change the 7 we originally asked town meeting floor to change and make that 9 again and keep this a 9-member board? So that's hopefully as simple as I can try to explain the technicality of what's going on. But you will see a town meeting warrant article. And I haven't had confirmation yet because there's just been so many other things, but I will hopefully make sure that that warrant article no longer moves both items to 7 and keeps them back at 9 through the interest that this group has generated. Worst comes to worst, we'll have to amend it later, but I think we'll be able to catch it in the warrant this time. So hopefully after the next town meeting, which is now, June 5th, I believe. So
Yeah.
now that we have that town meeting on June 5th, as soon as that gets approved, and this can now be a 9-member board again by our town code, then we can advertise for the other 2 spots and we can get somebody in there as soon as possible. And usually that's just, Erica usually does the committee advertising, and there's a certain period that you advertise and then you put in your application, the select board reviews them and then appoints them. Again, it's government, it's a little bit of a process, but it will probably flow very quickly. So hopefully that explains it. Anybody have any questions? Okay. My job is just to make sure that everybody that's making up that warrant catches that we want it to stay in.
We'll keep an eye on it. I'm keeping a close eye on the warrant this year anyway, so for other reasons. So anyway, Kelly's here tonight because he and I have connected with each other on a couple fronts in the last few months, and I said to him, I think we might have a spot for you eventually. And so I invited him to start attending our meetings and learn more about what we're doing to see if he's interested. And I actually have another person, another man who's interested also in applying next summer and wants to learn more. So we'll increase our gender diversity a little bit. And so Kelly, welcome. If you want to say anything or just say hello or.
I will if I can figure out how to unmute my mic. Yeah, I actually I met Claudia when she was volunteering at the pantry, and Brooke and I had met a few times. And upon hearing what you guys were doing, I instantly wanted to be part of it. So whether or not one of those seats even opens up for me, like I just want to be part of the dialogue and hear what you guys are talking about and offer whatever I can to help kind of work on the projects we are in this community. I think Nantucket's a really incredible place and diverse, and I love being part of it and learning about all the cultures and also creating our own. So that's me.
Great, welcome. And you're welcome to all these meetings. We meet on the first Monday of the month at this time on a regular basis. And hopefully you'll join us for the forum on the 25th as well and be part of that. So thanks for coming tonight. Okay, so anything else that anyone wants to bring up? We are gonna, Cindy?
So when should we expect that link that we can share with people?
I'm gonna work on that this week with staff. Yeah, by the end of the week. Anything else? All right, next meeting outside of the forum will be February 1st. Hard to believe. And so that we'll be together 2 weeks in a row. As always, feel free to reach out to me with ideas during the week. You are welcome, to communicate as long as it's not a group communication. But as chair, I welcome your feedback, input, suggestions at any time. I would entertain, Claudia, is your finger up to speak?
Sorry.
No?
There we go.
Okay.
Perfect. Yeah, no, before we finish, Happy New Year to everyone, by the way. Hopefully this year is gonna be so much better than it was before. I do have a question about the vaccine, which is here already, and I think is something that we need to consider, and also to have something described to the people what is the vaccine, and just give a little light, because I know it's a lot of questions, even for myself. I'm not sure about this, and probably so much people in the same position that I am right now. So I just wonder if we can navigate about that topic.
Okay, I'm going to toss that ball to Jericho, who had a meeting on the vaccine today, actually, that I know he was at. So hopefully he can enlighten us.
All right.
So as far as vaccine outreach goes, I've got about 10 micro articles running through translation with Florencia right now for kind of consistent and regular communications with everybody. They're going to be coming out pretty regularly in Spanish and Portuguese and English. They're going to cover a lot of topics, including, what a vaccine is, how this vaccine is different from others, the health impacts of the vaccine, how we're going to start doing the vaccination process, where the vaccination clinics are going to be. So there should be a pretty constant stream of that coming out of me and going out through town. Social media, I believe we're going to do the Facebook, and then I think I'm in the process of trying to get in touch with several faith leaders to do short video records introducing the concept of vaccine to be distributed at actual services, I guess is the right term for that. And then there's going to be kind of Nantucket media style NCTV stuff. I'm focusing right now on getting the list of the people who are going to be signed up for the first two phases, and the kind of messaging rollout for vaccination should be starting pretty much this week and into next week. So that should be a pretty regular stream of communication from the town as to what vaccination is like, what the whole situation on that is. But the unfortunate truth of that right now is that the vaccine supply situation in terms of it getting here is really fluid. So anything I say on time frame is going to be necessarily really vague because we just don't have a concrete timetable for it. And we probably won't until February to Marchish. If you guys want to draft up, like if you have questions or things that you have collected from the community as to concerns and like issues that people have with the vaccine, feel free to send those to me, and then I will work. I will get answers for them. If you guys have any vaccine related questions or people who are asking when am I going to get vaccinated, you can send them to the town COVID vaccine webpage, and then you can also, if they have, unfortunately, I only have one other language besides English, and it's not applicable here. But if you guys do have any questions, or if you know of people who have questions, you can direct them to my office line. And I handle, if there's a phone call to the health department that has to do with vaccine, it goes to me. So I will do my best to answer any personal questions on that front. And then we have kind of a whole outreach and messaging plan that is being developed in tandem with the actual vaccination plan itself. And of course, anybody I'm the human services director. So if you guys have any questions that come up in the course of your day, you can always reach out to me on that, and I'll try and clarify it as best as possible. And actually, one thing that I think this council can really help me with is things that I've missed when I'm doing my outreach. So if there's kind of something that's lying around that nobody's addressed, and you guys are like, why aren't you guys talking about then please send that to me. That's an incredibly valuable service that you guys can help me with. But that's pretty much where we are on outreach. Concrete plans for rollout have to wait for us to have supplies. We have sign-up sheets for phase 1 right now. We'll have sign-up sheets for phase 2 in the coming weeks. And we're going to be kind of managing all of that stuff through the Family Resource Center link that Brooke has been setting up. So very much on my mind. And if there's anything you guys can remind me of, please do.
Thanks, Jericho. Well-timed meeting.
Is
All
there a question?
right.
Do you want to
Yep.
move to adjourn? Is that what you're asking?
Nope, I think Aslan has a question.
Okay.
It's a quick one. Jericho, are we following Baker's rollout when you're talking phase 1, phase 2 on mass.gov?
Yeah, all of our vaccine supplies are getting provided to us through the state. So we're following state guidelines in terms of when everything's happening. Basically, phase 1 doesn't apply to anyone here. Phase 1 is pretty much medical professionals. It's also a couple of like core infrastructure people and then first responders. Phase 2 is going to be a sizable percentage of the island. That includes anyone over 65, anyone with a comorbidity, and anyone in a couple of job areas, primarily being educators, are going to be all in phase 2. So look for February rollout for that phase 2 process. Yeah, the vaccine situation is we're right in the middle of the full planning for the rollout. So specifics are going to be kind of thin on the ground for a few weeks, but that's roughly the timeline.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions, I would definitely entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Okay, thank you, Daryl. Is there a second?
I second.
Athlon, thank you. Okay, by roll call, Daryl,
Yes.
Athlon,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Claudia,
Yes.
Jocelyn,
Yes.
Vanessa.
Yes.
So nobody wants to stay. I vote yes as well. Okay, thanks you guys. And
Happy New Year.
We'll be in touch with some more details on the forum by email in the coming weeks. And Cindy and Vanessa will be in touch to schedule a planning session for co-hosting. All right, terrific.
Okay.
Good night.
Happy New Year,
everybody.
guys. Bye.
Everybody.
Happy New Year.
Rachel, I can just end the recording, right?
Yes, and when you do, oh, my camera's gone again. When you do, save it to the cloud and then tell Florencia. Don't save it to your desktop.
Yeah, no, I sent it out to the cloud.
Yep.
Thank you very much. And I gotta take a course in this Zoom stuff.
Trial by fire.
Indeed. Thank you. Take care.